Okay. Okay. We will go ahead and get started. You can see several members of the Equity Advisory Group are here, and also some invited guests are also here with us, which we'll acknowledge here in a second. But as we're getting started, I'll just again welcome everyone. This is the May meeting of the Equity Advisory Group for Puget Sound Energy. Will be expected to run through 7 p.m. or until 7 p.m. And are happy to have folks here. So as we're getting started, I actually want to first invite Shakisha from PSC to present a safety moment for this evening.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Hi, everyone. So our safety moment this week or this month is, we know this is a season for gardening and home improvements, but before you dig, it's good to call 811. As this diagram shows, there are many lines beneath your homes. Some are cables for telecommunications, some for gas, and you don't want to hit that wrong line if you're outside gardening. So don't assume that you can just dig anywhere. Call 811 at least 2 days before you dig. And digging anywhere in the state of Washington without calling a utility is actually against state law. So make sure before you do any digging in your yard to call 811. Thank you.
I feel like I probably did a lot of digging as a child and did not call state utilities. So it's good to know. Wonderful. Okay. We want to invite, and actually, I should just say, like, hi, everyone. This is our first meeting back. Some of you we've seen here since our last meeting in March, but we took a break in April as far as the full Equity Advisory Group goes. So I kind of just jumped right into the swing of it. But I should say, hi, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome to EAG members. Welcome to folks watching online on YouTube. And we also have some invited guests here. We'll acknowledge here in a second and ask folks to tell us a little bit about themselves as well. But yeah, we're very happy to be reconvening here again and getting back into the work. We'll hear from a couple of folks from PSC today on some pretty relevant topics that actually keep the momentum going from recent work the EAG was doing around affordability, and then a conversation on disconnections. And so we're excited to do that. And then I also want to acknowledge and for folks that are celebrating Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, just an acknowledgement of that as we're right here squarely in the middle of May. And yeah, feel free to use the chat if there's anything else that you want to acknowledge around this month, celebrations, things that y'all are aware of that you want to make sure we're recognizing. Some anybody else? Questions, reflections, anything this makes you think of, any connections this makes? I'm always interested to see how what we talk about in the meeting connects back to the moment. But yeah, look, we're getting folks. Karia's also talking about how she's thought about going back to school too. So Monica said, just wanting to acknowledge those who also scale build through apprenticeship programs, which I think that was also part of Megan, what you were kind of getting at here. You were saying an if then, if you choose to enter higher education, then, here are some things to think about. But I'm sure implied in that is that there are many pathways for.
Yes. That was all programs, and actually the workforce programs are also supported on that webpage as well. So yeah, higher education being anything you would like to do. Yeah, post high school.
Cool. Well, thank you, Megan. Thanks for getting us back rolling and getting us thinking about some of these important conversations and questions. And obviously, as you said, this is a hat that you wear as a faculty member, and so or department head, I should say. And so appreciate you bringing that here to make the connection for the EAG. Cool. Okay. I want to do a couple of acknowledgements some of these are familiar, but another one that I want to just do an acknowledgement here for folks that are in the room. So today we have two primary topics that we're going to be talking about. They're very highly connected, and they're also very relevant to some of the recent EAG meetings that we've had. And also in a moment, we'll talk about the work that the members of the EAG did in sort of the downtime, nearly the downtime of the where we didn't meet as a full group. Several people participated in an in-person retreat together, which was really awesome. And it was great to be in actual shared space with several of you that are on this call. Ariam will do a recap of that retreat here shortly. And in that retreat, we also talked affordability and some of those questions. So folks that were participating in that breakout conversation, that'll be part of the recap we do a little bit later on. But affordability and energy assistance update and disconnection practices, both within this realm around affordability, which is a major sort of priority area for the EAG. And so we've got Teresa Birch and Nicole Eagle here from PSC to talk with us about that. A break will come in between those two things. We've got public comment just before we wrap the meeting. One thing that I wanted to acknowledge here, so as always, this is a meeting of the Equity Advisory Group. We want to make sure that we're active participants. As always, I know it's 5:17. If you've got things going on in the background, if you are not able to have your camera on, or you're not sitting at a desk in front of the computer, that's okay. Take care of what you need to. If you're able to have us see your face and be present and let us know and connect with you over our Zoom world, would love to have folks' cameras on so that we can see who's in the meeting. And part of that I wanted to acknowledge is that, again, this is the Equity Advisory Group. And so we want to prioritize the members of the group that are here. This is sort of their meeting, and the discussion that has been organized is for the perspective of the EAG. But we also have several folks from the LIAC that are also here today. I think we've got a couple folks I can see here as I toggle through the list of names. And so we would love if members from the LIAC could use the chat and just make themselves known, show, your name. And if you're willing to, please, we'd encourage you to share what lens you're representing today. You've been motivated to participate and come to this meeting, and the invite has been extended. We're glad that you're here, and I think it'll just be helpful for all of us. I'll say it'll be helpful for me as a facilitator as well to just know who you are and what lens you're representing today. I know that's something that the EAG members have also been doing more and more as we try to get stronger connections around our collaboration. And so, again, really emphasize active participation, really emphasize, folks, if you're able to have your cameras on, and if you are a guest of the EAG or of today's EAG meeting, please use the chat to introduce yourself and describe what lens you are representing today. So we have some familiarity of where, of what you're interested in. Okay. Lastly, from a perspective of guests and other participation, we have our live stream going simultaneously. Ariam is managing that here in real time. And so we will provide instructions again later in the meeting when it's time, or for our public comment period. If folks are listening in on the YouTube live stream right now and can see us and hear us, if you're interested in participating in the meeting, you will communicate with us later in the meeting during the public comment period, I should say. We can provide you the link so that you can join during that point in time in case you'd like to verbally say something or acknowledge during the meeting. Otherwise, we're monitoring comments in case you're using the chat function over there as well. Cool. And with that being said, first thing that we want to just tee up, as I said, full circle, we had some really great work from the Equity Advisory Group at a full retreat that happened just at the end of March. And Ariam is, well, I was gonna say Ariam's here to share out. Ariam's here to do a lot of things, but one of the other things she's going to be doing is sharing out about that retreat.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to see all of your faces. Really excited to preview what is next and what came out of all of the work you all did together at the retreat in March. On this slide is some takeaways from everyone's individual name cards and your seat at the table when we did an activity where we asked folks to kind of draw or symbolize or write what they were bringing to their role as an EAG member from their unique perspective and their unique lived experience, and really founding this time we spend together in that lived expertise and what you're bringing to the table and addressing things. And so this is a reminder and touchstone of that. I'm here to give a overarching summary of the takeaways from the retreat and how that feeds into next steps. So I'll go ahead and jump in with the next slide. So everyone should have gotten a kind of newsletter style summary that went out about the retreat, but that covers these main points, but I'll dive a little bit deeper here. So the biggest or the first takeaway was about assistance programs. We've talked a lot about in the past about their complexity. There's a lot of them. How do people know what's right for them? We even talked about, I think, unified or universal registration at our meeting as a thought experiment idea of how could we make that happen. But one thing that we really took away was that it's not necessarily that PSC doesn't have a reason why they have so many of these different options, and that there are definitely experts at PSC about what program does what. It seems that the connection is more about that culturally responsive wayfinding. How can EAG members bring what they know about their communities and provide information so that PSC can more easily and more effectively reach folks with the right programs that are right for them? And that this group has a lot of ideas around doing that and wanting to put those into practice. The second piece was this general deep understanding of how equitable, how distribution is equitable at PSC, and then up to and including PSC's operations and the effect that they have on various communities. So I think building out this deep understanding and not necessarily an expertise based in electricity engineering, but rather from your perspective of how you know your communities, what do you need to know about the system so you can inform this conversation in our meetings and times together, and really advise PSC. Next slide. Third is if you're going to integrate into a deeper understanding of the way things work, how it relates to things over time, and holding that knowledge with you over time, it really also comes with an understanding of the utilities equity priorities. How are we consistently checking in with what PSC's goals are, what we're here to advise about, and working with community partners to identify opportunities to lift that up. And so being more intentional about the EAG's communication with that audience of PSC staff, PSC as the utility, and that feedback loop of understanding each other's goals. Fourth is a continued focus on clear communication and feedback loops, especially to show how the input that you're giving here as reflecting and representing community is is influencing decision making, and being able to not only knowing that that's happening, but being able to, as EAG members, articulate that and to go tell the story back to your communities so that will continue to engage and continue to work together towards equity in energy. And the final big takeaway was there is a new A on the block, and its name is advocacy. We talked a lot about accessibility, affordability, accountability, and advocacy is the new A. And this is really about how can PSC and the EAG come together and use their collective power to influence systems change. I like to call it big E equity, and pushing forward, big complex problems that require other coalitions and things, but we've got to start somewhere. And so how are we really talking about that? How are we using civic activities available to the EAG members to push forward that vision? And so that is the new A. with all of these 5 takeaways, and I guess my last slide is the next slide, and I can open the floor for some commentary from everyone who was there. Next slide, please. Oh, perfect. We're not just going to stop here. Our retreat was very much the starting point. We called it a governance reset almost, so that we can understand how we're going to make these big ideas come to life and make sure that you were using the capacity that you will bring in your respective fields, communities, expertise to push forward this vision of a clean energy transition. And so some of the next steps that we have are we're really focusing our May one-on-one meetings to on the impact. The priority framework that should have been included at the bottom of your slide deck. If you were at SteerCo, which I know many of you were this month, we reviewed it there. We want to get even deeper into that and with one-on-ones with you all. So please, just like that whale who is swimming towards the one-on-one link, you can also do the same. And it's probably not the right species whale that lives here. I'm new here. Please accept my ignorance in that respect. But we're also, number 2, going to be expanding SteerCo to an extra 15 minutes to focus specifically on how we're pushing forward these initiatives. We've got lots of ideas that we've been working on the back end here at Uncommon Bridges and preparing to roll out for all of you. And so a reminder, SteerCo is for everyone, and we encourage you, if you really want to be a part of those conversations and pushing forward these initiatives that we're envisioning, as the takeaways from the retreat, please come to SteerCo. It is the first Monday of the month and is now 15 minutes longer, so we can really have time to talk about this governance, our governance plans. And then finally, I mentioned that we are working on the calendar of activities. There's a lot of ways to accomplish those 5 takeaways and the goals that are under them, and then also to address the priority framework. And so we at Uncommon Bridges are working on a facilitation work plan for the next year that would ideally get us and you all at CEAG closer to those goals and accomplishing and improving and pushing the line when it comes to energy equity. So I'm going to pause there and open the floor for conversation and questions, and really hope to hear back from some of the folks that were at the retreat, and if you have other takeaways that you want to bring up. Amy, please.
Hi, Ariam, and thank you. And unfortunately, I can't be on camera right now, but I wanted to say, I really appreciated the transparency on Troy and Yvonne and the other folks who were there from PSE's part. And I think it really stuck with me that a lot of these programs have never really been measured. Like a lot of the existing programs haven't been measured for equity and the impact for equity. And I'm really hopeful that we can kind of help create a framework or ideas on what should go into measuring programs for impact from an equity lens.
Absolutely. I think that a big part of our goal with you all and the conversations we'll be having is around measuring impact, one as a group, and then of course looking at how your group advice is affecting and driving PSE actions and decisions, and then the outcome of that. Lots of nuance, and that we want to spend time getting into it and laying it out and having something that is enumerated. So yeah, Ishmael, if you wanted to mention anything on that, be my guest.
Yeah, I'll just say, and then I'll acknowledge as well, TJ said, really appreciate the visuals. Glad that that's a great way to track. Kari also said for the heart and hard work. We're just trying to reflect back to you all the hard work that y'all are doing. And as Ariam said, which is going to come up a lot in the sort of first Monday of the month SteerCo meetings, is there is a lot of aspects to building out this work. There's actually a whole lot of things that we are, working to help create the space for with PSC to be able to advance some of these. Some of those things are going to be some of these strategic conversations that look at operations as a whole. Some of these are going to be educational opportunities for EAG members to learn more, but also for each other to learn more. And so impact measurement, obviously a lot of nuance in there, from the big, scale questions to the more specific, tangible, for this program XYZ. And so, I agree that it was a really good moment. And I see Marco says, I think the advocacy piece is a really great addition that will provide opportunities for this group to practice our civic muscle and influence the policy outcomes that center impacted communities represented this group. So we're part of the solutions we hope to see. Yes. Snaps for Marco. It's always wonderful. Folks join groups like this because they're motivated. You all have joined because you have a lived experience and background and you want to see outcomes. That was super clear in the retreat. And so advocacy is another muscle that will help us do that. So great. So we just wanted to make sure folks got that full feedback and that full loop. We're going to keep doing this many different times and places and spaces, as Ariam said. And thank you all for making that such a collaborative and positive space. Okay. So I've got some acronyms to acknowledge that will be being used in today's meeting, and then I'll pass it over here just shortly to our first presenter as we talk about affordability assistance programs and some more conversation in that space. If you hear the letters AMI, we're referring to area median income. BDR is bill discount rate. We'll try and match these things in the chat as they're coming up as well. And if everyone has questions at any point, please feel free to ask. I'll look at PSC presenters to think a little bit if you get too much into an acronym soup. What are you actually saying here? CCA, the Climate Commitment Act, FPL, federal poverty level, HELP or HELP in all caps, the Home Energy Lifeline Program, LIHEAP, LIHEAP, Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, and PDBF, Past Due Bill Forgiveness. So these are all components under the affordability assistance. Well, not all of them, but several of them are important and super relevant to the affordability assistance conversation. So we'll try and track in the chat as well as is needed. But with that being said, I would love to have Teresa. I see you're also off on camera, ready to go. So Teresa, I'll toggle through your slides as you go. And I'll just acknowledge for everyone, Teresa's got some stuff that she wants to share. Teresa's open to any questions or clarifications in real time. If there's something that's like a very straightforward clarification and you write it into the chat, we might address it right away in the chat. If there's something that might prompt a response from Teresa sort of verbally, we'll try and flag her attention for that. And we want to encourage folks to be mindful of the moments that we're trying to have for broader discussion. So we do want to obviously have folks participating and active, but as the facilitators, we'll kind of manage what's happening in the chat with what's happening verbally, so we don't have two things happening simultaneously. Cool. Okay. Teresa, you're up.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Happy to be here to speak to you tonight about a relatively brief update on our affordability and energy assistance programs. As the slide says, I'm the manager of billing and payment operations, which includes a variety of things, including assistance programs for our income qualified customers. And haven't been here in a while. We have something new since we've last spoken and some updates on the existing programs. So let's get into it, and I'll keep our time clock going here. So the objective tonight is that we want you to understand what's new and what's existing and the status of what's existing. It's kind of at its core. and then be able to respond to feedback from you based on your context, your experiences in the community, the fellow customers that you engage with in the field that offer perspectives that we may not see here in our department. So appreciate you being here to listen to this tonight. So this is our assistance portfolio. It's grown over the years, which I'm very proud of. It's grown a lot. We're trying to reduce barriers and increase enrollment across the board, which has been fantastic and very well received by our customers so far. I won't read all of these to you, and you'll see a lot of the acronyms that Ishmael very expertly read through to you. I think the highlights of what I'm going to talk about is our bill discount rate, which has been live for just over a year and a half now, and then our brand new past due bill forgiveness, those in red there, that went live October 1st of 2024. PSE Help has been around for a very long time, and we're very proud of how it's doing under this new atmosphere of self-declaration. One thing we've added to this down on the bottom left there is our Climate Commitment Act. So for those who aren't familiar with that law, what comes along with it on the gas side is elimination of that burden for a income qualified customer. So that pairs nicely with our programs. When a customer gets enrolled, they also get the benefit of this not being burdened by the Climate Commitment Act. There's a couple of numbers here that actually you'll see again later, but direct bill assistance funding, $182 million. It's amazing. We have done so much, and we have grown this so much from it being in the realm of 30 to 35 million that we would get out the door. So we are very pleased at the growth. And we are very pleased with the Commission's support of our asks for increase to this program, because we do not want to turn away any customer. So with that, let me talk a little bit about the bill discount rate and PSE Help, which now kind of go together. Our eligibility and design of this program is that it's for residential customers, they're primary residents only. And now October 1st of 2023, we moved to self-declaration, which means a customer does not have to bear the burden of gathering a bunch of documentation and things that might not be readily available for them to come in and apply. We've adopted this culture of trusting our customers. We think that when they're coming to us because they need help, they actually need help. So with that, they can come and apply for our programs. And then in order to show prudence and to show the Commission that we are looking at things, we subsequently will randomly select 5% of those customers and do some verification and work with them to get some documentation. The two programs together use the same definitions of household and income, which is per the Clean Energy Transformation Act. So we use up to 80% of area median income, that's AMI that Ishmael referred to, or 200% of the federal poverty level, whichever is greater. And just for those who aren't really familiar with these income guidelines, area median income was new that came along with the Clean Energy Transformation Act. And that actually is higher in all 10 of our counties for families up to about 4 or 5 household members, depending on the county, before it flips to federal poverty level. And so what that did was it opened up eligibility to a much larger set of our customers than were eligible before we made this change. We like the two programs to work together, and I'll show you a little bit in a minute about how those discounts work. But they're designed to work together to lower energy burden for a residential household to below 6%, which is the state guideline. The bill discount rate, I'll show you the actual discounts here in a minute. There's 6 tiers that go along with that. And then our PSE Help program is a one-time grant, kind of follows the LIHEAP program year, the federal funding. And it's designed to pay 20 to 60% of a household's annual energy uses. So that could be a minimum of $250 all the way up to $1,000, which can support customers in a variety of situations. So the two together is really what we're looking for. So if we look at the next slide, you'll see the 6 tiers of our bill discount rate. And we use federal poverty level all the way up until tier 6. It's very hard to combine them. There's a lot of overlap. So you might see this at other utilities as well. And we run from a 45% discount for the lowest tier all the way down to 5% for the highest tier. And the really important thing here that I like folks to keep in mind is that this is also coupled with the PSE Help Grant. So we do get questions periodically. You know, I saw a utility in Eastern Washington and their discounts are much greater. They don't necessarily have a subsequent grant program to also help offset those bills. So we very carefully designed this using our data on our customer base to make sure that we're not paying them more than what they owe us in a year, but that we are paying them enough to get that energy burden to a manageable level. So next slide. This is where I'm very, very proud of this. So we have a lot of ways customers can apply. They can apply online, they can call our call center, they can send us an email. Our outreach teams have done a phenomenal job of getting out into the communities. I've had the privilege of attending, I think I'm up to 3 of those now, helping enroll our customers and training the trainer to help others in the communities enroll our customers. And we're always looking for good ideas of where to go and where we can be of service. We also, if a customer is below 150% of that federal poverty level, we do try to get them back to their local community action partner agency to try to get that federal funding through LIHEAP. And then once they're on the bill discount rate, they stay on that for 13 months, and then we give them 13 months was by design, just so folks know. Everybody always asks, why not a year? Well, because we wanted to give them that extra 30 days to get their ducks in a row and come back in and reapply. And again, it's always just another round of self-declaration unless they happen to have been selected for verification. So the picture on the right is the one that I think is very telling. So if you look at our 2022 to 2023 program year, and again, like I said, this follows LIHEAP. So we're talking October 1st of 22 through September 30th of 23, kind of rolling out of COVID. We were able to serve 30,871 customers with PSE help. And then in the 23-24 program year, now we've moved to self-declaration and we've paired it with our bill discount rate. That went all the way up to 74,979. So a huge increase in customers we were able to serve. And now you tack on the bill discount rate. It does not follow a program year. It's just a point in time. But right now we are at 96,320 customers enrolled and almost 71,000 in PSE help already. And we're only in May. So we are going to beat not only our 2022 number, but also our 23 number, and hopefully continue to be able to serve more and more customers with these programs, get that monthly bill manageable.
Yeah. Well, 2 quick questions for you, Teresa, that I'll read out in the chat. So one question was whether community-based organizations, so I'm thinking about sort of the organizational level, have access to programs like HELP or a similar program to like HELP or bill discount rate. That's one question.
Yes, great question. I wasn't clear about that. So our community action partner agencies do administer the PSE help program on our behalf. So they are already looking at that. Puget Sound Energy approves the bill discount rate applications. However, our agencies do the verification, and our agencies can start an application for any customer anytime. So they do have access to our Energy Help portal, and they are extremely valuable to us in reaching customers and helping them get signed up for these programs, in addition to LIHEAP and other wraparound services that the agencies provide.
Thanks, Teresa. 2 other quick questions here. We'll do these 2 and then we'll keep moving, and then we'll keep sort of tracking the questions that are coming through the chat. Question here in the chat that said, the last time that this conversation came up and there was a similar sort of topic, there was a mention from a few EAG members that having some sort of like what, to your point around the types of ways people can apply, customers can apply, a physical location, a sort of brick and mortar physical location could have greater access. Is there any plans for physical locations where people can walk in, or what does it look like for people who might want to do that directly? And I'm not sure if someone else from PSC, Melissa, has thoughts on that.
Yeah, and she might, and feel free to weigh in here, Melissa. There's a couple of ways. I mean, the outreach events are one way. That's not a single brick and mortar that's always there, right? So we've been doing these well, I should say she and her team have been doing these library pop-ups that I've had the pleasure of joining. The other way is through our community action partner agencies. So we partner with 11 agencies across our 10 counties, which does provide a venue for customers that prefer to talk to somebody in person to get these kinds of services.
Yeah, and Teresa, I'll just add that actually based on some of the feedback that we got from the EAG, I think it was around the time that bill discount rate had launched, and your recommendation around brick and mortar, it was one of the reasons why we implemented the library pop-ups. So we've been kind of activating a PSE resource fair in different communities, and largely advertising. We bring on usually between 4 and 6 interpreters so that there's different languages available. We bring the apprenticeship program. We bring people from the billing team like Teresa. There's a whole lineup of people who are able to help sign up for bill assistance, and then all of the other resources that PSE has to offer. So that's one of the ways that we were able to take your feedback in and implement it in a way that our team could. With that information. Just wanted to thank you all for that, because those pop-ups have been wildly successful and hundreds of customers have signed up for bill assistance because of those pop-ups.
Great. I'm going to ask one or more questions here from Monica, and then I know that there's some other pieces on the chat. I'm going to keep us moving if anyone from PSC has responses in the chat. If not, I'll come back as we keep moving. But one other question is about the graph on this screen. Teresa, Monica was asking if you, first of all, that this is very helpful, thank you, and that if you have a sense why enrollments decreased for the PSC Health Program between 2023-24 and 24-25. Which I think it's because 24-25 is still ongoing. Is that?
Oh, correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's because it's only May. Yeah. We are going through the end of September. So we are, these are applications that have been approved and processed. We have thousands and thousands in the queue that we're working. So we will exceed last year's numbers by the time we close out this program year. Yeah. Great question. Sorry if I wasn't clear on that. I also just wanted to hit really quick on something around nonprofits or cultural centers. This is a residential program, so it needs to be a residential customer on a residential rate, Schedule 7E or 23G for gas, and their primary residence. So it is not currently offered outside of that population of customers. So just a couple quick things here, and I am keeping my eye on my time. So we have added past due bill forgiveness starting October 1st of 2024. This was something we've been talking about for years, how to implement this. We were very busy getting our bill discount rate off the ground. But the idea was that an income eligible customer can come in with a past due balance, and sometimes that balance exceeds what they might get from a PSC help grant or some other program. And while the bill discount helps them going forward, it doesn't help them to get caught up with that arrearage. And so if they can't afford that, that puts them in a situation where, you know, depending on the balance, of course, they could end up going through our dunning process, which is what Nicole will be talking a little bit more about later. So as we designed this program, we did a ton of enhancements to our portal. This is one-stop shopping, I like to call it. So a customer only has to fill out one intake form, one application, and whatever they are eligible for, they will get, which means PSC help, bill discount rate, and past due bill forgiveness if they have an arrearage that meets those requirements. We also added Spanish translations for the portal, all the forms, all the paper applications. So that was a big win for us that pretty much everything is at least available in Spanish. We do have our PSE.com also available translation in 6 languages there that can help. And then with the past due bill forgiveness, we automated the enrollment. So as soon as they hit those eligibility requirements, as long as they've told us that they're interested in it, that's my virtual check the box, then it will start automatically for them. We worked with a small working group of our low-income advisory committee members, included our community action agencies. We worked with our PSE field teams that are talking to these customers out in the field to really try to come up with a robust program. We are in the first year, so a lot of evaluation coming, but so far it's been working really well. So if we move to the next slide, just the high level goal of this to do past due bill forgiveness is that, number one, keep them connected to those vital services. So don't let that past due balance put them in that situation. Give them an incentive for an on-time payment. And what I mean by that is really make that current charge affordable. Make it so that when you get that bill, you don't have to make a decision. Do I go to the store to get some food? Do I pay for my medicine? Or do I pay my rent? I mean, we don't want that sticker shock on the bill. And that's exactly what these programs are designed to do. And if you do get yourself into a past due situation, this can help you get caught up. And it can help you get caught up in a way that is a positive experience. And I'll show you an example here as we move through this, but I'm very passionate about this program, as is Nicole, who you'll hear from here in a little bit, that it's able to make a difference for customers, that everyone can get into a situation that you can't afford your bill and you have to let it go this month. And so that's what we're here to work on. So a little bit about the program rules here. It is a 12-month commitment. Some people have told us that they think that's too long of a commitment. But the idea here is that even with that, any month that you are successful in making that on-time charge, you're going to get your 1/12 of that past due balance forgiven. And so in doing that, it'll make, we don't take it back. I guess I'll put it that way. I'm so sorry. Ishmael, I know you talked about distractions. My dog is about to start barking. Let me kick her out. I could tell at the door she was ready to go. My apologies. Okay. So our funding for this program is our same Schedule 129 that we use for PSE help. This can be a benefit of up to $2,500. And unlike some other utilities, we're actually allowing our customers to come back once every 2 years. Any other payments that come in after you've started this program, if you get some LIHEAP, if you get a family member offering to pay some of your bill, that's all going to go towards your current usage. So at this point, anything you can do to get that current bill paid is going to benefit you in the long run. So if you think about the eligibility requirement that's not shown here is $300 past due for more than 30 days. So not a huge balance. You'll qualify. When a customer stacks all of these programs, this is what that means. That means their energy burden has been reduced to below 6%. That means they've received a grant to help with current charges, and they're on a bill discount rate to help with current charges. And now, hopefully, those are affordable and they can pay on time. And as they pay every month when that bill shows up, they're going to start to see that arrearage go down. So if you go to the next slide, I'll show you what that looks like. We do have a limit, so you can miss 2 payments. Once you miss the 3rd payment, late or missed, you are exited from the program. We do still give you options for payment arrangements and things of that nature. So I just wanted to show this example because this is a customer that started the program, was doing great, but had a couple of whoopsies in the fall. Makes sense, it gets colder, the bill goes up. So what's happened is their on-time payments in May through September have resulted in each month, $78.59 came off of that past due amount. And if you look on the bottom left, they were past due almost $1,000. So that's not a fun bill for somebody to be looking at. So every month that's coming down, and that will stay there. Even if they miss a 3rd payment and get exited, that $392.95, they get to keep that off their arrearage. If they get caught up on the next payment, this October and this November, 7859 will show up. So there's a lot of incentive to be able to manage the bill, and there's a lot of incentive for us to make that bill manageable for our customers. We're very pleased with the program so far. You know, we've seen pretty good enrollment. We've seen customers really trying to stay current. And so I think it's been successful in that regard. And then my last slide. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Really quick, just before we go to the last slide, because I know the next slide we're gonna come off of this a little bit. It's still related, but we're gonna talk about sort of this bigger picture. And I promised in the chat, and you've mentioned community action several times, and we've got Shaylee here from the LIAC, who's also with the Washington Community Action Partnership. And so there was actually a question in the chat about how LIHEAP has been affected by a reduction in federal funds. And it looks like, Shaylee, if you're there, you said you'd be willing to speak to that and maybe some other things you've heard. So feel free to come off mute if you want to respond to that question.
Happy to. Yeah, so I support a lot of the agencies that distribute LIHEAP funds, so federal energy assistance. LIHEAP has been a decades-long, pretty stable funding source. We are in a relatively scary moment. There's not any like black and white answers yet. LIHEAP funds were secured through September of this year. However, the federal fiscal year, they run from October to September, similar to the way the energy assistance programs run with PSE, and it's because they were designed to complement each other, right? So we will know this summer what the status of LIHEAP is for October and beyond. LIHEAP was funded at $4 billion nationally last year and the year before that, I believe. And it has been, the president's budget cut it entirely, which is not unexpected. It's Congress that ultimately determines whether or not LIHEAP is funded. They're the ones that have the ultimate power of the purse, so to speak. However, this is a pretty tough budget terrain. The staffing for within Health and Human Services at the federal level of folks who administer LIHEAP, who work for the feds, they were all put on administrative leave earlier this year. So it's I've been in the network and I've been doing kind of LIHEAP adjacent things for 14, going on 15 years now, and this is the most uncertain I've ever seen LIHEAP funding. That's not to say there's no hope, but I think it's likely that we're going to see at least cut to LIHEAP if we are able to. No, it's not time to panic yet, but it is time to have those conversations and get stories out there about the importance of kind of this foundational federal program. So, fingers crossed, and I'm definitely. I'll put my email in the chat too. If you want to be connected with me on some of the kind of like advocacy level, I'd be happy to loop you in on some of the developments that we're having and opportunities for signing on letters and reaching out to legislators and things like that. So thanks.
Thank you, Shaylee. Appreciate that. I know you were active getting in the chat, trying to respond to questions, and you're like, I can't speak this one aloud. So thank you. And then one thing I just wanted to acknowledge here that was also in the chat, and then we'll move on here because from the federal to the state level conversation as we get a little bit into a similar, not exactly the same, but as we look at some of the sort of cap that came up earlier. Just wanted to acknowledge Amy shared a suggestion that Troy had responded to in the chat as a good suggestion. So just know that we're tracking it. Amy said that I know that credit unions often offer free personal finance advice. Could be possible to have people who have missed a couple of payments to connect with these programs so they can get back on track as another option. So good suggestion there, Amy, and thank you for that. Okay. All right, Teresa, now we'll go to
yes, indeed. Thank you. And thank you, Shay. And I apologize for my little giggling there. It's real world, you know, my dog is being a pain. I'm trying to get rid of her here. So we'll have a dog break for a second.
Teresa and I bonded for this. Both of our dogs are very rowdy. Yes.
Yeah, they always wait until I'm talking. So, so this last slide is just, we've talked a lot about this with, you know, some of our LIAC members in particular, but there is a state law that outlines a 5% threshold for a utility to be able to use revenues to reduce energy burden. In other words, to provide assistance programs. And in all the years I've been doing this, I don't think that was ever something we thought we were getting close to until now. So it's a good thing, and it's something that we have to discuss. So as I said earlier, our direct bill assistance programs funding is at 182 million. That includes some other programs outside of just the PSE help and the bill discount rate and the past due bill forgiveness, because we do have some other income qualified customer programs that are included. Currently, with that 182 million, the gas number is 2.5%. So we're okay there. The electric is 4.4%, which gives us a very small window of, I think, about 19 million before we hit the 5%. And that also includes the past 2 years of increases that we've asked for so that we can continue funding and supporting our customers. So we do expect that our next Schedule 129 filing this fall, we will estimate to exceed the 5% threshold. And that's why we've started the discussions now to see what needs to be looked at and what needs to be discussed. And I think that brings us to our next slide of why we're bringing this to you.
Yeah, and I can acknowledge this first piece. Thank you so much, Teresa. And seeing some things in the chat. I know, Teresa, you've been focused, doing a good job. There's a lot of positive affirmation in the chat for the work, and appreciate the update. And obviously a lot of people engage with questions. Just as we sort of round off this piece for the meeting today, and if anyone has some additional feedback, which will prompt here, but I'm actually going to go back a slide. As I acknowledged earlier in the retreat, we had a conversation that sort of looked at this same sort of parameter. And it was interesting, as you were sharing out earlier, Teresa, on like the increase in sort of utilization of help and bill discount rate, because there's like this twofold dynamic, right? Of like, it's a good thing more people are using these program and these services, and also it's this balance and this sort of tension of, you know, how much more is there? We don't assume that there is an unlimited amount of resources. And so it's this both and of being really like inspired, as someone said, about sort of the opportunity, how accessible it is, et cetera, but also knowing that, you know, there are these certain parameters. And so this was actually something that we talked about at the retreat. Some members that were in a breakout group discussion might remember. I was in that breakout discussion with Yvonne, kind of had this conversation of how might we build a case? If we were to build a case for increasing the maximum limit, what would we be focusing on? And some of the things that came up in that conversation, we just wanted to do the full circle, is that we have to think about sort of, you know, if our focus is on customers in the deepest need, and Teresa talked about those tiers a little bit earlier, we want folks sort of moving up and out, and especially from a generational standpoint, out into these opportunities to have more stability, and being able to have programs like this allows folks to not sort of tip over the edge. Not that we're thinking about people just in the binaries of numbers on a spreadsheet, but having folks, you know, move into those different tiers means a lot more than just what their access or eligibility is for these programs. It probably means a lot of other things are impacted in their life, and that there's some really powerful storylines about the impacts and the benefits of this work. The point I was just making, which came up again in the retreat, I'm not saying any of these things that weren't already said by the EAG. This has the potential to change the trajectory of multi-generational families. Folks will be able to have some pieces of their lives resolved and taken care for that allow perhaps and hopefully a next generation on and on to not have to experience those same particular hardships as it relates to inaffordability. And that, frankly speaking, stable families make good long-term customers. And we want to not have folks go over the edge for so many reasons. You know, this is where you start to get into intersections, for example, into impacts of homelessness. You know, there's so many different reasons why we would not want this to happen, because we want to take care of folks. And also, we'll have more folks involved utilizing services. That's a positive for the utility as a whole. So those are some of the things that some of you all said in our EAG breakout. We just wanted to make sure that we made that full connection. Y'all have been very active in the chat, a lot of really good questions. Any other pieces of feedback, open to having folks come off mute, that PSG should consider regarding affordability and energy assistance for customers? Anything else that folks want to acknowledge on this topic?
Answer some of that. There's a lot, but just to give you an idea of some of the things we've looked at and we've talked to other parties about. So the barriers have been reduced as far as paperwork goes, which is fantastic. We still we struggle to reach our senior citizens, just to be honest. There is a perception that this is a handout, not a hand up. And we do get a lot of that. You know, we don't want it. We still get some confusion over, you know, do I really qualify, particularly now that we're going up to 80% of area median income? Those higher tiers don't necessarily consider themselves income qualified. So it's hard to come and convince them that, you know, yeah, this program is designed for you and to help reduce this burden. And sometimes just knowing where to go, which we're working on very hard. And Melissa, who's on the call here, her outreach team is working very hard on that. So there are things that we've identified through surveys and some other things, and we're working on them all. And there's more, Dennis, there's more than that, but it's, you know, kind of these little pockets of nuances. Language, we're working very hard on language barriers, just to make sure that that's not the reason that you're not coming to apply.
And the reason I asked that, and you know, you provided some very specific answers, because I realized, you know, part of our job in the EAG was to provide feedback on how to deal essentially with probably those folks that are actually falling through the cracks in the system. Is to, I guess, figure out how do we deal with all those varying groups with the conditions, whether it's just, you know, having knowledge or even just not stepping forward and acknowledging that they are in that position. I guess that's, you know, if you were to find variability in any process, I guess that's where your variability would be. So I guess that's probably a part of the feedback that we would give for dealing with this population.
Exactly. Thank you.
And I'll add really briefly, and if anyone else has something, I think I saw a hand sometime back from Jenny, if you're still a question relevant. But I'll just add really quickly to Dennis's piece and circling all the way back to Ariam's report out. So like, that's a great question, Dennis. Like, part of our EAG responsibility for feedback here is how do we help support PSC with those that might be at risk of falling through the cracks? That is a great type of question for us to continue to explore in a broader sense. And so just so that folks know that even if, you know, as we move on, you know, Teresa won't be at every meeting that we have, that's a type of discussion this group can continue to have, and we can figure out how it makes its way back to Teresa and continue that loop. So I wrote that down. It was a good one. Any other pieces here? Questions, flags, feedbacks, acknowledgements?
Well, I have a question.
Go for it.
Okay. My question is, we did have the discussion, correct me if I missed it during this session, but during our retreat, there was conversations regarding the population as far as the middle class per se, those who are, working families that have children, but quite are not considered as low income, how do they fall in? And I'll give you a case scenario. With people I've spoken with, it could have been a time when they fell behind because of job loss or just one income coming in. And so now that things are a little bit better, so to speak, they don't qualify for a lot of the programs because they're not considered, that low income level, but still have the need. And I'll throw a number out there. Just for instance, if there is a family that is combined income of, and they go by the gross in the programs at PSC that I've noticed, of $100,000. What does that look like for? And they had a past due balance still hanging around about $600-700, or maybe even close to 1,000. So what does that look like for that type of scenario?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it does depend a little bit. So we do still offer a lot of other things, like you can still get a payment arrangement of up to 18 months. And so if they could get through that, and just to clarify, we do actually use net for this program. We ask our customers to provide us their gross just because that's easier for customers to understand. What's the total on your paycheck, and then we use the similar guidelines that LIHEAP uses to bring that down to net. We also have types of income that don't count, like veterans income, for example, is basically zero. So there's a couple things there that sometimes customers just need to have that conversation. And the other thing we've found, and I've been thankful to be able to come to some of these events, is that if you lost your job for 6 months of the year and now you're back to work, and right now your paycheck is over income, but if you look at your 12-month average, you're not, we will look at that. And our CAP agencies will work with customers and take that 12 months and divide it out. And so they may actually qualify based on the gap in employment. And people don't always realize that. So that's something I'd love to be able to let people know. It really, yeah, we ask for the last 30 days, but if you've had a catastrophic event like a job loss or something, or a medical condition that's got you out of work, come have a conversation and let's look at your full year and see if we can't get you that help.
Yeah, good question, D'Amico. I also know, and it sounds like Nicole will be able to share a little bit, and sort of, as I mentioned earlier, there's actually a pretty relevant connection between the conversation that we'll have, and she'll introduce broadly about disconnections, but there's actually a lot in there about the connecting to other programs, especially for some of these gap fillers. I see something here from TJ for bill discount. Is there a spike in enrollment data or a time of the year that enrollment is higher? Could this be correlated with anything?
Pretty much always October, because that's the start of the program year for PSC Help. And so our customers that come in every year, they tend to flock in the fall to get themselves set up for those next 12 months. So we do also see spikes after certain marketing events that we do. If we do social posts or radio advertisements or advertisement in our voice with the bill, we'll see a spike. But the biggest by far is in the fall.
That's great. Thanks for answering that.
Cool. And then I see Karia. Karia's been up since 5:45, but great thoughts in the chat. Karia said, I think thinking about this conversation, I'm building the case. Empowering individuals and families facing energy burden involves providing financial relief through assistance and energy efficient upgrades. It helps create job pathways in the energy sector. It offers education and with practical tips on conservation. These efforts could help reduce costs, increase opportunities, and promote long-term self-sufficiency. So thank you, Karia, for adding those comments there. They're great. Okay, and I see.
Thanks for that. Point well taken.
Great. Okay. I'm gonna, there's a question from Megan in the chat. If Teresa, if you can acknowledge, if you read it and maybe see if you can respond directly. I'm gonna call a quick 5 here. Take a moment, go fill up your water bottle, have your dog, take them out the door, whatever it is that maybe was a distraction. Just quick 5, and we'll get started here up with Nicole here just after a very short break. And I'll acknowledge what folks watching on YouTube should know about public comment here in a second. So be back here 6:22, and we'll get rolling again. Thanks. Okay. We'll start to come back. You're nearby, you hear my voice. Bring it on back. Thumbs up if you're here, a camera on if you're here, a chat that says I'm here if you're here. Great. I used my 5 minutes to get this is not a product placement, Nature's Bakery Fig Bar Mini Blueberry. If you haven't had one before, they're very good. That's my 3rd today. Something about me. Okay, great. So we're gonna keep it moving here. I'll acknowledge the screen was up during the break. If you've been viewing the live stream through YouTube, and if you are interested in a public comment before the end of the meeting, you can also visit the PSE EAG website for access to the particular Zoom link. We'll look out for you in the waiting room and admit you before the end of the meeting for a chance for you to chime in and participate. So again, we'll share these instructions in a little bit, but appreciate y'all here and out there. Okay. So, oh, I see a hand from Jean Marie.
Yes, thank you for getting my full name. I appreciate it. Not everybody does. I know we're starting back up, and I wanted to say I appreciate the discussion thus far. It's been good, but I also did want to draw attention to the fact that because we've spent so much time on the affordability, we're only just now getting to the disconnection, so it's really getting kind of crammed in the remainder of time that we have. And that's a bit of a concern just from my perspective as a LEAC member. So I feel like perhaps it would have been better had that been split off for its own discussion, or we could have had this in a series of discussions, but it feels a little bit tough to have that all put on the same slot and have it be rushed here at the end. So I just wanted to volunteer that for the group.
Sure. Thanks, Jean Marie. My goal as facilitator, Nicole's goal is to make sure that there's an opportunity here to make sure that there's still ample participation through the rest so that we don't feel like we're being rushed, and want to make sure that we're balancing where folks' interests are. Totally get it that might feel like it's really squished. That does come up as feedback. And so, yeah, we'll keep it rolling here, Nicole, and we'll look to folks on the EAG for feedback, how you feel. You can also let us know if you want us to keep rolling, or any things in the chat as we have done in this previous conversation. So Nicole, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Good evening, and thanks for having me. I will try to roll through my slides as quickly as we can and really cover the pertinent topics. I know we are running short on time, but I'm Nicole Eagle. I'm our manager of our credit and collections and meter network services department. And I'll be covering our disconnection practices this evening. So next slide. So I'll be reviewing our disconnection practices and really covering a lot of how we use our targeted outreach process to reach our customers, to share about programs that are available to them. Those programs can ultimately prevent a disconnection, but I will also be sharing where disconnections may occur. And then with our objectives in mind, I'll be covering, our requirements for disconnections, how we are following them, and then hearing from you all as community members. Next slide. So this is our, we do have a compliance requirement here around our disconnections. So from PSE's 2024 general rate case, we are really here this evening collaborating with not only the EAG, but also the LIAC members that are in attendance. So we'll be discussing the disconnection practices, and then later on, we'll be submitting a letter to the commission documenting our collaboration. So next slide, and we're going to spend a lot of time on here, so I won't be saying next slide for a bit. So I will kick us off just by starting with, our PSE's targeted outreach process on past due balances. So you may also hear me use the word dunning. I think Teresa used it earlier. For those that may not be familiar with that, it's very commonly known in the utility space, but if you're not familiar with it, dunning for us really just means it's the act in which we are engaging with our customers who do owe a past due balance. So if you hear me say either targeted outreach or dunning, they are one of the same. So for us, our process starts by looking at a set of parameters, and those parameters include looking at the past due balance threshold. We look at a propensity to pay segment. And our propensity model that we use really helps us to segment customers into two aspects. So customers who are displaying good payment account behaviors, and then those that are not. And for those who are not currently displaying good behaviors are the ones that are considered for this targeted outreach process. And then we lastly look at customer type. So are they a residential or commercial customer? So then our process starts to look at the number of business days in arrears. So 1 day past the invoice due date and a customer meeting the above parameters, we start our targeted outreach process. And so between 1 to 5 business days in arrears, we start off with proactive outreach, engaging with our customers, doing, reach out to customers to, cover and, provide awareness and education on programs that we offer. If they continue to proceed down the process at 6 business days in arrears, we send what we call an urgent notice. That notice also goes into a lot of detail around the programs that we offer. It covers ways to avoid a disconnection. And those notices are sent today by hard mail, so USPS, and then also email, as long as we have a good one on record. And then if they do continue forward down the process, we do continue with some additional proactive outreach. And then at 13 business days in arrears, we send what we call our final notice. And then at that same time, we're also making our final outreach call. And if they proceed at 19 business days, they reach for a field visit, which that is the Meter Network Services team that I manage. So those are the field guys and gals that are going out door to door, visiting customers. And then from about 20 to 30 business days in arrears, we are out making those field collection visits. And so, as you can see, there's just a ton of outreach that occurs with our customers in this process. And really the ultimate goal of ours in this process is to connect with as many customers as we can early on so that we can make them aware of programs and all of the protections that are available to them. And I've listed a lot of them down at the bottom. I won't read every single one, but of course you see they tie in very well with a lot of Teresa's programs. So the PSE Help, LIHEAP, Bill Discount Rate, our Past Due Bill Forgiveness Program. But we also have a lot of other programs that are also available for any customer that may be in this process. So we have the Warm Home Fund, which is a donation-based program that can help customers in this targeted outreach process. And that's served by our Salvation Army. We have long-term payment arrangements, which you kind of heard a little bit about earlier. We have level payment plans to help with peaks and valleys throughout the year. And then we also have choose your own due date. And then several protections listed down below as well. So we know that there are different types of customers who may be going through this process. And recognizing that individuals may have different circumstances, different needs. They may be eligible for some, not eligible for some programs. But we do believe that all of these that we've listed, there is a program or multiple programs, because you can engage with multiple at the same time, that are really here to help customers. And so whether a customer has fallen on hard times, maybe they're experiencing a longer hardship, similar to kind of what Teresa mentioned earlier, maybe there was a loss of income, something very substantial for the household. You know, whether they are income eligible or they are maybe not income eligible, we have a lot of options that ideally, should fit their needs. So really, while I've covered this in a nutshell, the proactive outreach, though, is so critical for us in this process when it comes to engaging with our customers. We do know that we have a lot of income eligible customers in this process, but we have some that are going to be over income, whether that's just slightly above or they are just simply not qualified. And as a reminder, we do also have commercial customers in this process. So being able to share all of the programs and being able to offer the extended payment plans, and our plans have a lot of flexibility when it comes to both the duration and the frequency of the plans, having level payment plans, being able to, level out some of those peaks and valleys, in our seasonality here in the Pacific Northwest. Being able to choose your own due date, that's a big one for us as well. And it can be really helpful for customers to be able to change that date, whether it's to get it closer to maybe a pay date, or even beneficial for some of the commercial customers that may be going through this process. Maybe their payable department only cuts payments on a certain date of the month, right? Being able to have some flexibility to be able to move that. Ideally, if we're able to move the date closer, that's great. And it's all the better for us. It may also help to avoid them entering this process moving forward. So we recognize how these programs are absolutely critical for our customers. And I will give just a real quick, real life example, probably closest to me, which is my mom. She currently engages with several of these PSE programs. She's been a single income for many, many years. And she's now retired and on a fixed income. And so she's currently enrolled and she participates in our level payment plans, which really helps her with those peaks and valleys and levelizes it throughout the year. She's also income qualified and has participated in our PSE Help program the last few years. And she's also enrolled in our bill discount rate. And I would say all of these not only help her to manage her PSE bill, but it also just helps her with her finances in general. So again, these programs are critical. But all of that said, I don't want to overshadow that disconnections do happen. So while disconnections are extremely regulated, we have a lot of policies that we must follow. They really guide us in who we disconnect, how we disconnect, when we disconnect, and if we disconnect at all. And so an example of if we disconnect at all, we have some of the protections down below. We may be experiencing a weather event. We have policies around if disconnections must be halted when we're experiencing a weather event. For us, we also consider if we're in a severe or major storm, we also halt disconnections. So while disconnections are happening, they are happening on a small percentage of customers. And I'll give just a couple of numbers to throw some things out there. So in 2024, we disconnected on average about 9% of our customers in the process. And right now we've typically been seeing about that average. And then in 2025, we've been at about 5% average. And so give you a little bit of example about how many customers are in this process is about 56,000 right now that are actively going through this targeted outreach process. And that's typically been our running average. We do have a lot of, seasonality. And so that number can vary throughout the year, but We typically see about 40% of that volume in this process reach the field visit in this step. And so that is kind of where the disconnections on average are getting based off of. So we do want to continue to see that disconnection percentage decrease as much as we can. And we really see that happening through reaching our customers early on in their past due balance. I do also want to share, and I think Teresa kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier as far as some of her experience with her programs, but we do also see some customers that are going through this process that do not wish to engage with any of the programs that we offer. And that I've seen that experience live in the field with my agents. For whatever reason, it's valid to them, the reason for not wanting to engage. So disconnections may occur under those circumstances, but we will continue to do everything we can to encourage customers to engage with these programs, perhaps not today, but possibly in the future. And so we will also continue to review our process and identify any areas of opportunity. We're constantly looking at barriers within this process, how we're communicating with our customers. I will share one thing that we're actively working on right now is the translation of our notices. Today they are sent in English only, but soon we will be also sending them off in Spanish if that is the preferred language selected by our customer. And we started with Spanish, given that that is our second highest spoken language, second to English. But other translations may be something considered in the future. But for now, we have options for other languages being translated, whether that's through an agent in the call center, could be one of my agents that's helping with this targeted outreach process. Some of my field staff also can help with translations in the field. Or we also have our language access line that offers a ton of languages. And then if a customer happens to also learn about all of these things and chooses to self-serve on the web and find out things, the website also has translation service options as well. So that is really this process in a nutshell. I think, why don't we move to the next slide, or if there's some questions.
Yeah, there's one thing. Thank you, Nicole, for getting us started there. There are some questions, but I'm actually going to try and bunch a couple of the questions together from the way that I'm reading them. There's, firstly, I'll just say thank you for sharing the story about your family, about your mom. I think that was helpful. There was questions about like relatable, who is in this process. And then there were a lot of folks that I think are recognizing that folks that might be in this process, the experience they're having is, that they've had like a medical condition or, whether it's urgent or non-urgent, that, you talked a little bit about language. Like, I think people are looking at like, why are people in this situation? And maybe if you can speak a little bit to what is some of the engagement, what have you learned from the engagement work that you're doing? You described a little bit about translation, but what's some of the things that PSE has seen over the past couple of years to try and be very specifically targeted at meeting folks, given their experiences and why they're in Dunning? And hopefully that's a fair way to capture several things that are in the chat here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to answer that the best that I can. And if I miss the mark, just let me know. But I mean, we have a wide range of customers that may enter this process. I do have a slide down in the appendix that does kind of break out. We have far more customers staying out of this process than are actually entering, which is great. But those that are, and when they do, I think our proactive outreach, doing everything we can upstream to make sure that customers are aware of these programs, really does help. We see a very large percentage of customers that enter into this process, but never reach disconnection. And we really equate that to the outreach, the notices. There may be other ways that they're getting, communicated to. Could be through some campaigns that maybe Teresa is running, or even maybe at some of the pop-up events that were mentioned earlier. There is so much readily available to help our customers and avoid that disconnection. But, you know, they do have to engage with them. Does that help, Ishmael, or was there another piece I missed?
I was trying to track what I was seeing in the chat. So I'll look for folks in the chat to give me thumbs up or any kind of affirmation to see if that helped address what you were getting to. I see Charlie's hand, and then if anyone else from PSE has anything else they want to add, we'll go there. Yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I always enjoy joining the EAG space from the LIAC. So thanks for the invite. And sorry, I'm not able to come on camera at the moment. I did have a question. I know that PSC has an internal credit and collections process that it does with a third-party company, which PSC has talked about this before to the LIAC, and it's been a while for me since I refreshed on that process. And though I know it had included using various factors to prioritize folks' place in the dunning process, or i.e. in the line for disconnection. You know, those factors were like, I'm trying to think, like when they created an account, if they've been disconnected in the past and how recently, etc. And I was going to ask if we could walk through that process too, to refresh those of us who haven't heard it in a while or who have never heard about it. But it looks like there's other interest in the chat I'm seeing just now about dunning parameters. So that seems kind of related. It's a big conversation, and I know we're running shorter and shorter on time. So I guess maybe now it's from a question, it's turning into a suggestion that we flag that as part of the conversation on this topic too for future discussion.
So I'm happy to cover just really high level for you right now, Charlie, if that's helpful. So okay. I believe you're referring to the propensity to pay segment parameter. Is that correct?
I think so. If you just discuss it, I'm sure I'll agree.
Yeah, so that's one of the parameters that we use. And again, for us, it really helps us to segment customers that have a good propensity to pay. They may be paying slightly slow and or late, but they are ultimately paying. And then it also helps us break down and segment customers into not having such good payment history. And so for those, they will enter into our targeted outreach process. So I do use, it is a third party that does this modeling for PSE. And we really look at our propensity segmenting as kind of another safety net and protection for our customers, because it really is helping us to keep a lot of customers out of this process and really allowing us to focus this targeted outreach on the customers that truly need it, right? They may not be super aware of all of the programs that we offer. And so us being able to do our targeted outreach, you know, can reach that segment of customers. But for us, really the model that we use, it's a company called Total Solution Incorporated, abbreviated TSI. So TSI really is looking at, you know, we segment our customers on a monthly basis. So it's happening after a customer is billed. And it's really looking at a multitude of attributes within our system that then they take, and they have an algorithm that's running through. We will not have enough time to go through all of that nitty-gritty, but I will say it's really looking at what is their propensity over time, right? What are their behaviors? Do they need to enter this process? Do they not? And so that's really it in a nutshell. I don't know if there's more that I can provide or provide back to Ishmael and team, and they can update you guys as well.
Yeah,
Nicole, I added in the chat that maybe because that's lengthy, maybe we can follow up.
Okay.
Yeah, Nicole, one of the things I think would be helpful based on some of the questions I'm seeing in the chat is to talk a little bit more about the medical conditions protections?
Yeah, I mean, it's a protection that I have listed down below. If a customer is having what we call medical condition, or you may have also, heard it referred to as a medical emergency, those accounts are protected from both the targeted outreach and also disconnections. So if a customer, I'm not sure if they can self-serve it online, but I do know if they call into the call center and they're expressing that they have a medical condition, typically we categorize those as a short-lived medical condition. We also have another condition called life support, where that is more of a ongoing, possibly permanent medical condition that they have. Either one, no matter which way you look at it, it is a protection for the customer. So as soon as they make PSE aware, we will either remove them from this process if they were already in it before they informed us, and they will exit the process.
Yeah. Thanks, Nicole. I'm gonna use a comment here as a segue to your next piece here, because I think there's a relevance piece. There's a question in the chat about has there been an evaluation on reasons for people give to not engaging, or why do people who qualify get help might think others may not engage with PSE? And I know that you have a slide here about some of the evaluation and sort of feedback that you're learning, and maybe you can talk about this and what it's prompting you all to think about.
I sure do. And thank you. Nice segue. So yes, we did just recently survey our customers, and it was customers that had recently gone through the targeted outreach process, and they were also disconnected and then also reestablished services. So they were reconnected. And we really did this survey because we wanted to hear from our customers' voice, just kind of how was their experience, and if there was really anything that we could do better and improve the process. So the table here represents, we've got the questions on the left that we asked during the survey, and then the results are on the right. I will preface this with the participation overall in this survey was a little lighter than we would have liked. But given the importance of this survey and hearing directly from our customers, I will take whatever we can get to gain more insights. So overall, I would say the survey was pretty positive. There's certainly some results here that I think we can dig into further and see if there's any improvements that we can make. And while I can't fit every single customer's response on here, and given that we are running light on time, I will just highlight the last one, which that question was, how could the disconnection reconnection process be improved? And I would say we saw a really high trend in the responses that ultimately the process generally was pretty quick, it was pretty easy, and it was a pretty stressless process. So we love to hear that. But given participation, we certainly do plan to do a few more of these surveys in the future, just to continue to gain customers' experiences in this process.
And I see Dennis's hand, a couple things in the chat. I'm actually gonna prompt Nicole to go to her next thing here. Maybe Nicole, if you can think of these sort of as like a group. And I'll just acknowledge that for a lot of us, I kind of acknowledged in the chat earlier, first time I learned the word dunning a couple of weeks ago. This is new, and there's some of us here that are very familiar. And so trying to manage that for a lot of us, this is a very important topic, and we're trying to ask a lot of questions to get ourselves wrapped around it. Part of the reason why I'm asking Nicole to keep going here is next couple of pieces here maybe help root them in customer example types, and that might help us understand even a little bit more of like who's in this and why. And so maybe Nicole, if you can try to do these in a couple of minutes here, or as a cohort, however you'd like, I can toggle through the slides, then I'll go back to some of the chat stuff from the EAG.
Yeah, I think we can really summarize the next couple of slides. They're just some customer journeys. I've got an example of a good propensity journey, customer that may be paying a little slow, but they weren't in our targeted outreach, and then 2 that were in our targeted outreach. Ultimately, every single one of these examples covers engagement with the customer and really good positive steps that the customer took that ultimately left them protected from disconnection. So this first example was a customer that engaged with PSE Help. So you can kind of see their trajectory. They had a past due balance of about $1,000, but were not yet in our targeted outreach. They did engage with PSE Help. They received the help, which you can see that really nice cliff drop off. And that's about when that PSE Help funding hit their account. And then they were also enrolled in our bill discount rate. At this time, their balance doesn't quite meet our past due bill forgiveness program based on our eligibility rules there, but they did accept the terms for that. And so if this customer happens to meet eligibility for that program anytime within this program year, we will also get them started on PDBF as well. Next journey, pretty similar, a little bit different in ways of they had a slightly higher past due balance. This customer did exceed over the $2,000. This customer experienced our targeted outreach, so they did get some phone calls, they got some notices, and they also reached the field collection visit step as well. However, prior to a visit even being made, the customer did engage with some programs. It appeared that they did engage through our website. So they went to pse.com. They started their application process. They were also approved for PSE Help, which you can, again, similar to the last one, kind of see that nice cliff drop off where their balance really reduced quite a bit, which is great to see. And then this customer did enroll in our past due bill forgiveness program. So they're enrolled now, and with every on-time payment that this customer makes, we will be forgiving a portion of their past due balance. And that will continue to keep them protected from disconnection. Oh, is this the last one? Sorry, I thought we were on
that's the last one. That's the last.
Okay, so this customer, very similar to the last. They were also in our targeted outreach process. This customer only received some of the proactive outreach, and we assume by kind of making some of that engagement with the customer, we may have missed them as we were doing our phone outreach, but hopefully that helped drive them because it looks like this customer called into PSE and they were able to speak to one of our representatives in the call center. This customer needed us to mail them out the application process. Looks like that's what fit their needs the best. Maybe going online wasn't an option. So in the interim right now, we do have their account on hold. So we've kind of paused the outreach process. We've mailed them out that application, giving them some time to fill it out. They can always call us if they have additional questions, but also giving them time to mail that back to us. And so hoping they are approved. And if they are, they will get PSE Help, bill discount rate, and we sure hope that they select the past due bill forgiveness on the mailed app as well, so that we can get them enrolled for that program as well. And it certainly looks like this customer will need it based on their balance being over $2,500. So hopefully they selected the terms for that. But for now, this customer is also protected from disconnection based on the programs that they're starting.
Thank you, Nicole. So as we roll into some of the pieces of feedback, and as I acknowledged at the outset of this meeting, I'm going to really prioritize EAG member feedback, and we have obviously a couple of minutes here, and understand that folks, Nicole, this is sort of presenting this information for the first time, so we're trying to get our bearings on sort of the basics of some of this information. So I appreciate folks' grace with that. Dennis, I'll go to you first.
Oh, this is Ariam. This is like so close to my heart just because I'm always struck by the message we got at the first event that I attended with all of the EG members, and someone said, when you're moving in somewhere or something, your life is changing, that's when you think about your relationship with your electric company. And I'm thinking that, Dennis, the question that you're asking is like, why are people doing, like, what is the humanity of this activity? Like, why are they making this choice? And there's so many complex reasons as to like why that might be, and could be a potential place of inquiry for the EAG in relationship with local service providers and direct service providers about what is it, what is this thing, which most likely has to be related to being a human and making a decision and opportunity costs. How can we really get into that? Because we know that PSC, that is really difficult for them as an institution to do. So like, where can community insight come into play?
Thank you, Dennis. Some quick things. Obviously, we're here at time. I see a couple of comments that I'll acknowledge here, but I think, Dennis, you're tying back to when we talked about sort of like some powerful storylines. The way you just said that you're losing your connection to the world is an important way to think about this. And so again, kind of like I wrote down earlier, Ariam, thank you for making that sort of tracking and connection, because we want to be able to, we will be hosting a lot of different spaces for EAG member participation for some of these bigger questions. And if we don't have answers to them right now, I think it's part of this. So a couple of things that I wanted to read out from the chat and then acknowledge. Maybe we'll give 30 seconds or so to the hands, though I see them that they're here in the chat as well. Shaylee says, I have equity concerns with the propensity model. Other people use the terms behavioral scoring or credit scoring. Customers who have a history of not paying and being disconnected get put into dunning right away, whereas customers, who do not have this history are not. The targeting of resource information to energy insecure customers is great, but the expediting of disconnection processes based on past history is inequitable, in my opinion. The outreach element and the disconnection piece are linked in the system. And I would really like to challenge us to all see, and ask if this is necessary. Amy shares disconnection is a huge impact, even to people who cannot get on to pay, such as kids or disabled adults. Also talked a little bit here to the humanity of it. Amy's acknowledging shame, miscommunication, distrust, mental illness, a whole host of reasons why people and their dependents may get disconnected that I don't know if they're being captured and treated in a kind way in the current system. So again, that humanity piece being a really important way that we acknowledge our engagement. We are at time. If I can ask Shaylee and Amy, I know I read your comments, to sort of limit and aim for about 30 seconds here. So as you sort of wrap up a statement, we'll do that, and then we'll start to wrap up the conversation.
I think I captured what I wanted to in the chat. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Amy.
I don't even think I'll need 30 seconds. There's just a couple things that we touched on lightly, and a couple of things that we didn't touch on today. This idea of vulnerable customers that's been brought up in the chat. Protections to be considered for vulnerable customers, people who have really high energy burdens, people who have very young children or medical problems in their household, people who are vulnerable seniors, renters who can get evicted if their power is shut off. There's categories, right? And then there's also this idea of, if you're in a highly impacted community or vulnerable community, arrearages and information I've seen is that those are folks that are disproportionately in these processes, right? And it's because they are energy insecure. And so certainly there are customers out there that have a hard time keeping up with payments because of other reasons. But a lot of the customers that I really want to advocate for are the ones who are not paying because they can't pay. And those are the ones I really want us to think deeply about in setting up protections, if possible. Like, what can be done?
Thank you, Shaylee. Okay, appreciate you all. A lot of new information. Thank you, Nicole, for being here. A couple of things to just sort of stick a pin in, as we clearly have a lot of motivation, and some of the things that we talked about in the retreats or coming out of the retreat were sort of like, who are the audiences of the EAGs? Obviously, we have big questions, feedback back directly to PSE and some of the program. There's opportunity here potentially as we think further out around the connections between the EAG and the LIAC. LIAC have some experience with this topic, and there's an opportunity to exchange as the EAG has its priorities, and another audience being customers directly or the public directly. And so I think we want to continue to track that. Again, I don't want to, especially as we start to move forward in this process, feel pressed that all the work that the EAG is doing is going to be accomplished within these meetings, because it's not. It's actually going to require a lot of effort beyond that. So thank you all for your time today. Thanks to all the EAG members. Great first meeting back. We will be in touch with you. Be like that whale. Sign up for one-on-ones. And yeah, we'll